So please welcome Martin Böhm.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I will be the international part, aside the Nordics, in this session, giving a little bit an insight about the thinking, what's currently happening in Austria. I will, on the one hand, in the first part, I will focus a little bit on the administrative issues, on the framework conditions, what we are working currently, and then having really a look on projects, on real implementations where we are focusing or going towards mobility as a service. When we're looking, that's not my presentation. Sorry, that's a different one.
Improvise.
Now I have to improvise, yeah. Okay, if you're looking, because that's a long one we had yesterday. Yesterday we had a workshop, and there had been a long one, and I sent a short compromised one. But anyhow, if you're looking on the challenges, then I will just take this one, this slide. If you're looking on the challenges currently approaching, we in Austria, we have the big deal. We are speaking always about data. On the one hand, the data are integrated towards services. Services are combined, hopefully in future, speaking about mobility as a service, where we have combined services. And the big discussion we currently have is really looking on the border between the private and the public responsibilities. Who is responsible for doing what? We're speaking about data, we're speaking about open data. You know all the discussions all over the globe, yeah? We expect that the public sector is providing all the data for free. The private sector is providing no data. They're using the public data and they will provide the services. But is that really the reality? What do we need to cooperate, to work together, to come to this next step of really of integrated cooperative work towards mobility as a service? And by looking at all those things, by looking on this paradigm shift and discussing about data, we already see that previously in the administrations, we discussed about building infrastructure. Above that, we're investing into vehicles, driving along this infrastructure. And then maybe there is some service. But we need to change that. We need to change in all our planning, all those things. We need to think first on the services. We need to think, what do we need? What do we need to provide to our citizens, to our travelers about the services? And if I'm clear about the service, and what I need, then I might think first about the vehicles. Because if I decide that the service will be mainly on public transport, the infrastructure will look differently, and I will have completely different vehicles traveling and using my infrastructure. So starting with the service, then looking on the vehicles and coming down then to the infrastructure. That means it's a complete paradigm shift. Previously we used really our money to invest in our infrastructures, but now we need really to think about the services first. And by saying that, what we have done in Austria, it's currently really, we invested in providing the framework conditions. The framework conditions are on the one hand, the legal framework. I guess also here in Sweden, as in many other countries, we have our ITS laws. We have these framework conditions, we have an ITS action plan. We are setting up the priorities for the upcoming years. Where do we want to focus at? Where do we want to invest into? This is more or less the framework. Based on the framework, we have our platforms, the platforms where we discuss all those issues. And by speaking about the platforms, then we have an ITS Austria platform, but we have also Austria, it's not large, but we have the cities on the one hand and we have the countries on the other hand. And we need to be very clear that those are speaking different languages. Therefore we have also cities platforms, but also platforms for the rural areas or for the more western parts of Austria. And then when we have these framework conditions, then we are speaking about the project, about the implementations on the one hand, but also about new research areas. And speaking about the projects, the first thing what we said is, if you're speaking about mobility services, what is the basis, more or less, of each mobility service? It's the knowledge about the situation. It's the geographic situation. And therefore, the discussion in Austria, the starting point was, okay, we need to have a kind of common GIS system, a transport graph, some map where you say, okay, this is our principal map. And we built up, coming from the administration, a common map, which is driven by the administrations. Yeah, that looks nice. No problem. No problem at all. I'm already.
You will get some extra minutes.
No, I don't need extra minutes. I think I'm even faster without. Yeah. So this is what I already spoke about. So does that work? No. Sorry. No. Okay. This is what. Yeah, now it works. I have skipped that. This is what I spoke about, yeah? This mind shift, not having the infrastructure as the basis, but having the big, and then somewhere the service, but really start with thinking on the service, and then break it down, what do I need on the infrastructure side? And then of course this goes with financing, with access and ownership and so on. I think I've covered that. Yeah, the interfaces. I've skipped that. Yes, interfaces are important, otherwise we are not able to cooperate. And one of the most important interfaces, and that's the reason why Austria is existing, is to have the interfaces from research towards development and deployment to the market. We know how many research projects are really become research projects, and afterwards a research project, and maybe then we are doing a development project, a second development project. Okay, let's look for the next theme. How many research is really coming to deployment? And that's more or less one of our tasks within Austriatech. Yeah, who is in the driving seat? It's always the question, is it the user, the market, the policy? This is where I was in principle. I've spoken about the framework conditions, I've spoken about the platforms. And then here we have the project, the operation. And the starting point in our thinking was this GIS system. The GIS system, a graph integration platform, this is what is called GIP, where really the administrations are responsible for monitoring everything what's happening, because they know best, and including more or less the legislation, as well as new roads, new infrastructure into this graph. This graph is primarily used internally for the e-government processes, but it's routable. It can be used also for services. And this is what we then did in the second step. We were speaking about a traveler information service. It's called VAO, Verkehrsauskunft Österreich. This is the Austrian wording, but it's a traveler information service including traffic messengers, mainly for the road, the traffic situation, both on the roads, but as well as on the motorways. And then here we have all the public transport and railway data, everything integrated and providing one service. At the end, we have one instance for all the partners. That means there is a central system which is used by all public service providers, and you will have the same information, comparable information. Nobody understood, if I'm going by the train, why will I get a different routing than going by public transport? So you will get the same information. Even if you're going to the motorway operator, you will get solutions for public transport. I can tell you, it was a huge job doing that. It was 10 years of discussion. We started in 2005, getting all the partners, even there with administrations, on the table and agreeing, yes, we want to work together. We have additionally also private partners, like the Automotive Club, participating. But only, I said, in 2005 we started. On 1st of November this year, we finally signed the contract, and that the organization for operating the whole system is set up. Now we have a legal organization doing that. Therefore, always if we're speaking about new service models, we need to know that takes time to convince people. And at the end, everybody wants to be in the driving seat. And this is exactly what we saw with Smile, and I already saw it in one of the first presentations. There was just the logo. Smile. Smile, this was a project. First thing, it's always weak, and I think it was Philip saying already, he doesn't like projects, because projects have a start. For me, it's even projects. Projects have a start, which is good, but they have also an end. And in projects, everything is nice. And here we integrated public data, private data. You have here data coming from sharing systems. You have payment services, and it worked brilliant. It was nice. It worked in Vienna, it worked in Linz, it worked in different places. But it was driven by the public transport operators in Vienna together with the Railway Association. At the end of the project, both said, I'm in the driving seat. So what happened? You can imagine they didn't agree on a business model. The business model is there, but they couldn't agree how to continue. So at the end, we have now two different systems with a very reduced functionality. One for the city of Vienna, one for the rest of Austria, what they call it. In fact, it's the railway associations. And in fact, we see here, similar to your expectations, we need to have a consortium and a neutral driver of such systems. Otherwise, it will not work. So for us, we see completely changing framework conditions, which we need to cope on administrative level, which we need to cope in Austria with new organizational models. Looking at the user, if we are speaking about services, we need to look on the user. We see diversity as a driver, not more of the same. It will change. That's good. And the business case for us, I think that's clear. It's mobility. Thank you very much.